The desert wind howled like a forgotten ghost across the cracked asphalt of Route 66, carrying the faint scent of sagebrush and engine oil. It was just past midnight when the old pickup truck skidded to a halt on the shoulder, its headlights cutting through the darkness like accusatory fingers. Inside, a boy no older than 10 clutched the dashboard, his small frame trembling, eyes wide with the kind of terror that etches lines into a child's face too soon. The driver, a hulking man with grease-stained hands and a scowl that spoke of unpaid debts, yanked the keys from the ignition. "You stay put, kid," he growled, his voice thick with menace. But the boy didn't listen. As the man stepped out to light a cigarette, the child bolted from the passenger door, his sneakers kicking up dust as he ran toward the endless black ribbon of highway, tears streaming down his dirt-streaked cheeks. Alone, vulnerable, he collapsed to his knees in the middle of nowhere, sobbing into the night, the vast emptiness swallowing his cries. From the horizon, a low rumble shattered the silence, a thunderous growl that grew into a symphony of roaring engines. Headlights pierced the gloom, like stars falling from the sky, a convoy of motorcycles slicing through the dark. At the lead was Ethan Harlow, a weathered biker in his late 40s, his leather vest patched with the emblem of the Iron Vow, a coiled serpent around a broken chain, symbolizing promises forged in fire and unbreakable even in chains. Ethan's face was a map of scars, a jagged line across his jaw from a bar fight in '98, faint burn marks on his knuckles from a warehouse blaze he couldn't forget. He rode with the ghosts of his past strapped to his back, a purple heart tucked in his saddlebag, a locket with a faded photo of a woman lost to the sands of war. The crew behind him, 24 strong, were his chosen family, ex-Marines, mechanics, wanderers who'd sworn the same oath under a blood moon years ago. They were heading back from a rally in Reno, the road their church, when Ethan's sharp eyes caught the flicker of movement ahead. He signaled with a gloved fist, and the bikes slowed to a halt in a tight formation, engines idling like watchful beasts. Ethan dismounted first, his boots crunching on the gravel as he approached the boy. The child froze, scrambling back on all fours, his thin shirt riding up to reveal a small, faded tattoo on his shoulder, a serpent, just like Ethan's, but smaller, as if inked by a trembling hand. "Hey, easy there," Ethan said, his voice a gravelly rumble softened by years of quiet regrets. He knelt at a distance, hands open, palms up, the way you'd approach a spooked colt. The man from the truck spun around at the noise, cigarette dropping from his lips, his face paling as he sized up the wall of leather and chrome. "This ain't your business," he snarled, stepping forward with fists clenched. But Ethan's crew fanned out behind him, a silent phalanx of loyalty, their eyes hard under helmet visors. One wrong move, and the night would turn. The boy pointed a shaky finger at Ethan's arm, where the tattoo peeked from under his sleeve. I have the same one," he whispered, his voice breaking like brittle glass. Ethan's breath caught, a chill racing down his spine colder than the desert night. He rolled up his sleeve fully, revealing the intricate lines, the serpent's scales etched with dates. 95, the year he'd lost everything in a deployment gone wrong. The boy nodded frantically, pulling at his own collar to show the match, crude but unmistakable. "My mom. She said it was from someone who promised to come back." The words hung in the air, heavy as the promise Ethan had buried deep after the war. He'd left a piece of himself in a dusty Afghan village, a vow to a local woman who'd saved his life, marked with the same symbol as a secret bond. But the chaos of extraction, the official reports of all accounted for, had convinced him she'd vanished like smoke. Now, this boy, with eyes the color of storm clouds, stared up at him as if recognizing a father from a dream. The truck driver lunged, grabbing the boy's arm roughly. "He's mine now. Debt's got to be paid." Ethan's hand shot out, gripping the man's wrist with iron strength, twisting just enough to make him yelp and release. "Walk away," Ethan said, low and final, like a judge's gavel. The crew closed in, not with shouts or fists, but with the weight of their presence, a family ready to ride into hell for one of their own. The man backed toward his truck, cursing under his breath, tires spinning dust as he fled into the night. Ethan didn't chase. Justice wasn't about pursuit, but about the stand you took when it mattered. He scooped the boy up gently, the child clinging to his vest like a lifeline. "What's your name, kid?" Ethan asked, settling him on the back of his bike, wrapping him in a spare jacket that smelled of leather and freedom. "Alex," the boy murmured, his shivers easing against the warmth of the engine. As the convoy reformed, engines revving in unison, Ethan glanced at the tattoo again, the serpent seeming to coil tighter. This wasn't coincidence. It was a call from the past, a promise clawing its way back to life. By dawn, they'd reach the nearest town, but Ethan knew the road ahead would unravel secrets that could shatter everything, or forge a new legacy of redemption. The first rays of sun painted the horizon in gold as they rolled into the outskirts of El Dorado Springs, a forgotten dot on the map, with a single diner glowing like a beacon. Ethan pulled into the lot, the crew forming a protective circle. Inside, over black coffee and plates of eggs that steamed in the chill morning air, Alex unfolded his story in halting whispers. His mother, Eleanor, had raised him alone in a trailer on the edge of the res, telling tales of a soldier who'd marked her heart with ink and words. "He promised to find us," Alex said, tracing the tattoo with a finger. But Elena had vanished 2 months back, gone without a trace after a late-night argument with shadowy figures in suits, the kind that reeked of corruption and unpaid protection fees from the local syndicate. The truck driver, a low-level enforcer who'd snatched Alex's leverage, figuring the boy was worth something on the black market. Ethan's jaw tightened, memories flooding back. Elena's laugh in a candlelit tent, the sting of the needle as they shared the mark under starlight. He'd searched after the war, but red tape and grief had buried the trail. Now it resurfaced in this boy's eyes, a mirror to his own unresolved loss. "We're getting answers," he told Alex, his voice steady as the rumble of a well-tuned Harley. He pulled out his phone, dialing an old contact, a retired MP with access to sealed files, but deep down, Ethan sensed this went beyond papers. It was a test of the vow he'd nearly forgotten, pulling him into a web of moral shadows where loyalty clashed with the law. As the crew fueled up outside, the scent of gasoline mingling with the diner's fry grease, Ethan watched Alex sip hot chocolate, the boy's small hand steadying. This intervention, born of a midnight whim, was weaving their fates together. Little did Ethan know, a simple swab of DNA in the days to come would crack open doors to a brotherhood betrayed, a child saved, and a redemption that echoed across the open road. The serpent's promise was alive, slithering toward justice in the dust-choked dawn. The morning sun climbed higher over El Dorado Springs, casting long shadows across the diner's cracked parking lot, where the iron vow bikes stood like silent sentinels, chrome glinting under the relentless light. Ethan leaned against the counter, his calloused fingers drumming a slow rhythm on the formica surface, the faint clink of his rings echoing the unease churning in his gut. Alex sat across from him in a worn booth, the boy's small frame swallowed by the oversized jacket, his eyes, those storm-grey mirrors, darting between Ethan and the window. Outside, the crew milled about, refueling tanks and sharing quiet nods, their leather vests creaking like old leather-bound books holding secrets. The air inside carried the rich bitterness of fresh-brewed coffee, undercut by the sizzle of bacon on the griddle, a mundane normalcy that felt like a fragile shield against the storm brewing. Ethan's phone buzzed on the table, the screen lighting up with a name he hadn't seen in years. Marcus Hale, the retired MP who'd pulled him out of more than one firestorm overseas. "Talk to me," Ethan said, his voice low, the gravel in it honed by decades of barked orders and whispered regrets. Marcus's reply came crisp, laced with the static of a bad connection. "Files on Elena Vasquez. Sealed tight, but I dug. She crossed paths with some bad elements post-war, local outfit calling themselves the Shadow Ledger, shaking down folks on the res for tolls. Last sighting, a clinic in the next county. Arguing with suits, no body, no report, just echoes." Ethan glanced at Alex, the boy's fingers tracing invisible patterns on the tablecloth, mimicking the serpent's coil. Echoes. That's what this felt like. A ghost from 95, reaching across the miles, demanding he honor the ink on his skin. He hung up, the weight of it settling like dust on his shoulders. "Your mom was tough, kid. Saved lives out there, including mine." Alex looked up, his voice a tentative thread. "She said the mark meant family, that you'd come if we needed you." Ethan's throat tightened, the memory sharp. Elena's hand steadying the tattoo artist's needle in that dim tent, her eyes fierce with a love born of survival. He'd promised to return, to build something beyond the sand and gunfire. But duty had chains of its own, and the war's end had left him adrift, the vow buried under layers of denial. Now it stared back at him from this boy's face, demanding resurrection. The diner's door swung open with a chime, admitting a gust of hot wind and a figure that turned heads. A woman in her mid-30s, her dark hair pulled into a practical braid. Nurses' scrubs faded from too many shifts at the local clinic. She was Sarah Klein, one of the crew's unofficial anchors, a veteran RN who'd patched up more than a few iron vow scrapes after trading her dog tags for scrubs. Her eyes, sharp as a hawk's, locked on Alex immediately. "Heard the rumble. What's the story?" she asked, sliding into the booth without invitation. Her presence a calm anchor in the rising tide. Ethan briefed her in clipped sentences, watching her face harden as Alex's tale spilled out, the shadowy men, the enforcer's grab, Elena's absence like a hole punched through their world. Sarah reached across, gently lifting Alex's sleeve to examine the tattoo, her touch clinical yet kind. "This isn't just ink, it's a marker. Old school. From the forward bases. Matches yours, Ethan?" He nodded, rolling up his own sleeve, the parallel lines drawing a collective hush from the nearby tables. The crew had filtered in behind her, forming a loose circle, their faces a gallery of weathered loyalty. Grizzled mechanics with oil-blackened nails, ex-soldiers with eyes that had seen too much. One, a burly man named Lucas Grant, leaned in, his voice a rumble. "If it's family, we ride for it. Oath's the oath." Murmurs of agreement rippled through them, the chosen bonds tightening like engine belts under strain. But the peace shattered when tires crunched outside, a sleek black SUV pulling up with predatory grace. Two men stepped out, suits crisp against the desert grit, badges glinting on their belts. But their eyes held the cold gleam of enforcers, not guardians. The lead one, broad-shouldered with a mustache that screamed authority, strode in, his partner scanning the room like a hawk. "We're from County Protection Services," he announced, voice oily smooth. "Heard about a kid picked up off the road, custody issues." Alex shrank back, but Ethan's hand steadied him, a wall of muscle and resolve. The suit's gaze lingered on the tattoos, a flicker of recognition passing between them, too knowing for mere officials. Sarah stood first, her badge from the clinic a subtle counter. "He's safe here. No issues until you say otherwise." The lead suit smirked, pulling a clipboard. "Papers say otherwise. Debts from the mother, unpaid fines. Kid's leverage till it's settled." Ethan's blood simmered. This reeked of the Shadow Ledger's reach, corruption threading through badges like rot in wood. He stepped forward, towering without effort. Leverage. That's not how promises work, or family. The room tensed, the crew shifting subtly, hands near pockets where loyalty often hid in the form of concealed steel. But Ethan held the line with words, not blows, honor demanding truth over chaos. The standoff stretched, the air thick with unspoken threats, until the suit's radio crackled, pulling him aside for a hushed exchange. Frustration etched his face as he pocketed the clipboard. "This ain't over. We'll be watching." They retreated to the SUV, dust billowing in their wake, but the encounter left a scar. The law, twisted, now hunted them. Ethan turned to the crew, his voice cutting through the diner's hum. "We need proof, real proof. Elena's out there, or what's left of her trail." Sarah nodded, pulling a small kit from her bag. "Start simple. Swab for DNA. Matches could open doors. Medical records, kin ties. I've got a lab contact in the city." As the sun beat down, turning the lot into a furnace, Ethan watched Alex submit to the quick test, the swab a fragile key to locked chambers. The boy met his eyes, a spark of hope flickering. "You'll find her?" Ethan clasped his shoulder, the serpent's weight a reminder. "Promise, didn't I?" The crew mounted up, engines coughing to life in a chorus of defiance. The road ahead, twisting toward revelations that would test every vow. Little did they know, the DNA would unravel not just a mother's fate, but a betrayal buried in Ethan's past. A brother in arms who'd traded honor for shadows, pulling the iron vow into a reckoning where redemption rode shotgun with peril. The convoy rolled out, dust swirling like unanswered questions. The promise coiling tighter with every mile. The asphalt blurred beneath the convoy's tires as they carved a path eastward from El Dorado Springs. The desert giving way to scrubland dotted with twisted junipers that clawed at the sky like desperate fingers. Ethan rode point, Alex secured behind him on the Harley, the boy's arms wrapped tight around his waist. The wind whipping their shared jacket like a banner of fragile alliance. The engine's steady thrum vibrated through them, a mechanical heartbeat syncing with the pulse of unresolved questions. Behind, the iron vow stretched out in a disciplined line, 24 bikes humming in harmony, their riders' faces etched with the quiet determination of men who'd stared down worse than shadows. The sun hung high now, merciless, baking the road into a shimmering mirage that played tricks on the eyes, mirroring the illusions Ethan fought in his mind. Sarah rode shotgun in a battered van trailing the pack, the DNA swab secured in a cooler of dry ice beside her medical kit. She'd radioed ahead to her contact in the city, a discreet lab tech named Olivia Reed, who'd owed the crew since patching her brother after a rally wipeout. "Results by evening," Sarah's voice crackled over the comms, steady against the roar. "But keep eyes peeled. Those suits back there? Not county boys. Smelled like ledger plants." Ethan grunted acknowledgement, his grip tightening on the handlebars. The Shadow Ledger, a syndicate born in the war's underbelly, preying on vets and locals with debts that never cleared. Elena had tangled with them, Marcus said, and now so had he. Miles ticked by in tense silence, broken only by the occasional whoop from the crew or the distant cry of a hawk wheeling overhead. Alex shifted, his voice small against the wind. "She used to sing to me about the road, said it was where promises lived." Ethan glanced back in the mirror, catching the boy's profile. High cheekbones, that same stubborn set to the jaw. Elena's features, no doubt. The thought stirred a ache he'd long numbed with miles and ale. "Your mum had a way with words, and songs." He paused, the memory surfacing unbidden. Her voice in the tent, low and melodic, weaving tales of home amid the chaos. The tattoo had been their pact, ink for eternity, a serpent to guard against the world's bite. He'd failed it once, letting the war's fog erase her. Not again. The convoy crested a rise, the city skyline emerging like a jagged crown on the horizon, sprawling towers of glass and steel that mocked the open freedom of the road. But freedom had limits here, where laws bent to hidden hands. As they descended into the urban sprawl, traffic thickened, horns blaring like angry wasps. Ethan signaled a detour through industrial backstreets, where warehouses loomed like forgotten giants, their rusted sides whispering of labours lost. The lab was tucked in one such shadow, a nondescript building marked only by a flickering neon sign, BioLink Diagnostics. Sarah pulled up first. Waving the crew to scatter and watch the perimeter, engines cutting to a predatory hush. Inside, the air was cool and sterile, humming with the whir of machines and the faint tang of chemicals. Olivia met them at the door, a wiry woman in her 40s with glasses perched on a freckled nose. Her lab coat hiding tattoos of her own, faded roses from a youth chasing the same wild roads. "Swab's a match starter," she said, taking the sample with gloved hands, her eyes flicking to Alex. "Full profile will take hours. Blood tie? It'll light up like fireworks." Ethan nodded, settling Alex on a stool by the window, where the boy watched dust motes dance in the slanted light. Sarah hovered, checking vitals with a mother's instinct, her braids swinging as she murmured reassurances. But the calm fractured when Ethan's phone lit up. An unknown number, the kind that crawled from blocked lists. He stepped outside, the door hissing shut behind him, into the alley's stifling heat, where graffiti scarred the walls like old wounds. "Harlow," a voice rasped, familiar yet twisted, like smoke through a filter. It was Victor Kane, Ethan's old squad mate from 95, brother in arms, or so he'd thought. Victor's laugh was a dry scrape. "Heard you picked up a stray. That ink on the kid, cute, but Elena, she owed us. Big. Walk away, or the ledger collects from all of you." Ethan's blood iced over. Victor, the one who'd vouched for the extraction, sworn Elena was safe. Betrayal slithered in, coiling around the promise like the serpent itself. "Who's us?" Ethan demanded. His voice a low thunder, fist clenching around the phone. Victor's reply dripped venom. "Family's what you make it, brother. She ran after you left, took something that wasn't hers. Kid's the key. Drop him at the old mill by dusk, or we ride harder than your crew." The line went dead, leaving Ethan staring at the screen, the alley spinning in a haze of rage and regret. Victor, the man he'd trusted with his life, now twisting oaths into nooses. The war had broken many, but this was a fracture in the soul. He re-entered the lab, face a mask of stone, briefing Sarah in hushed tones while Alex pretended not to listen, his small hands twisting the jacket's hem. "Betrayal from within," Ethan said, the words tasting like ash. "Victor's in deep with the ledger. Elena must have crossed him, maybe took evidence, hid it." Sarah's eyes narrowed, piecing it together. "Then the DNA's our weapon, proves the tie, forces questions on record. But we need to move, fast." Olivia emerged then, wiping her hands, the preliminary scan glowing on her tablet. Partial match already, paternal markers aligning, full results incoming. The crew reconvened in the lot, bikes idling as Ethan laid it out. The call, the demand, the rot at the heart of his past. Faces hardened, but no one flinched. Loyalty wasn't questioned, it was ridden. Lucas Grant, the burly mechanic, revved his engine first. "We don't drop family, we pick 'em up." Nods rippled through, the phalanx reforming with a growl of exhaust. Alex climbed back on Ethan's bike, his grip firmer now, eyes alight with a spark Ethan recognized, courage kindled from embers. As they peeled out, weaving through the city's veins toward the old mill on the outskirts, the sun dipped low, painting the sky in blood-orange streaks. The DNA results buzzed in Sarah's pocket, a confirmation that would shatter veils and ignite a chase. But Victor's threat loomed, the ledger's shadows lengthening. pulling Ethan toward a confrontation where honor would demand more than ink. The road twisted ahead, a serpent's path, promising redemption laced with peril, the boy's life and Elena's ghost, hanging in the balance of vows renewed. Dust rose in their wake, a veil between past sins and the justice yet to unfold. The old mill loomed on the city's ragged edge, a skeletal relic of rusting silos and crumbling brick walls that sagged under the weight of forgotten industry. The sun bled into the horizon, turning the sky a bruised purple as Ethan's convoy slowed to a gravel-crunching halt in the overgrown lot. Weeds choked the cracked concrete, their dry whispers mingling with the fading rumble of engines idling low. Alex clung tighter to Ethan's back, his breath quick against the leather. The boy's small body an anchor in the gathering dusk. The air hung heavy with the metallic tang of decay and the faint acrid bite of old machinery oil, a graveyard scent that clawed at memories Ethan had long tried to outrun. Sarah's van pulled up beside them, her face pale in the dashboard glow as she checked her phone. "Results just came through," she said, voice cutting sharp over the comms. Stepping out with the tablet clutched like a talisman, the crew dismounted in a fluid motion, forming a loose semicircle, their boots scuffing the earth, loyal shadows ready to stand against the encroaching night. Lucas Grant wiped sweat from his brow, his massive frame casting a long shadow, while others scanned the tree line, hands resting near holsters hidden under vests. No one spoke the fear aloud, but it pulsed in the air. Victor's trap, sprung in this forsaken place where echoes died unanswered. Ethan eased Alex down, kneeling to meet the boy's eyes, the storm-grey gaze now flecked with defiance. "Stay close, kid. This ends tonight, one way or another." Alex nodded, fingers brushing the tattoo under his sleeve. The serpent a silent vow between them. Sarah handed Ethan the tablet, her expression a mix of awe and gravity. The screen glowed with data. Paternal match 99, 9%, irrefutable. Ethan's chest tightened, a rush of heat and ice flooding him. The boy was his, flesh of his promise, born from that stolen moment in the desert war. Elena hadn't just marked him, she'd carried their bond forward, against all odds. "He's yours," Sarah murmured, her hand on his shoulder, steady as the crew's unyielding line. But joy curdled into resolve. This truth was a blade, sharp enough to cut through lies. Headlights pierced the gloom from the mill's shadowed entrance. 3 black SUVs rolling out like predators from a den, their tires grinding over debris. Doors slammed and figures emerged. 6 men in dark jackets, faces hardened by shadows, Victor at the forefront. He hadn't changed much, taller than Ethan remembered, but the war had carved deeper lines into his cheeks, eyes narrowed to slits under a scarred brow. Once a brother, now a ghost twisted by greed, Victor's leather jacket bore no emblem, just the faint bulge of a concealed piece. "Harlow!" he called, voice echoing off the silos like a hollow drum, stepping forward with hands spread in mock peace. "Brought the kid? Good. Hand him over, and we call it square." Ethan's crew tensed, a ripple of leathers creaking, but he raised a hand, holding them back. The weight of the tablet burned in his pocket, the DNA a hidden thunder. "Square? You sold out Elena, took what was ours and twisted it into your ledger of dirt." Victor's laugh barked out, dry and bitter, circling closer, his boots kicking up puffs of dust that danced in the fading light. The other men fanned out, eyes on the bikes, calculating odds. Alex pressed against Ethan's leg, silent but unbowed, the boy's presence a quiet accusation. "She stole from us after you bailed," Victor spat, jabbing a finger. "Evidence, files on our ops back then. Thought she could run to you, play the hero card. I covered for you both, Ethan. Extraction, my word got her stateside, but debts follow." The revelation hung like smoke, coiling around Ethan's throat. Victor, the one who'd radioed the all-clear, sworn the village was secure. Lies layered over loyalty. turning brotherhood to betrayal for a cut of the shadows. Ethan's scars itched, the burn marks on his knuckles flaring in memory of fires Victor had helped start and abandon. "You left her to rot," he said, voice low thunder rolling across the lot. "Promised safe passage, then hunted her for scraps, and now the boy, leverage for your empire of rot." The crew murmured, Lucas stepping up. His bulk a wall. "We ride for family, Kane, not your kind." Tension crackled, the air thick with the scent of impending rain and exhaust. One of Victor's men twitched, hand drifting toward his waist, but Sarah's sharp voice cut through. "Back off! We've got proof, blood proof. Ethan's the father. You touch them and this hits every channel, every vet network. Your ledger crumbles." She held up her phone, the lab report cued, a digital serpent ready to strike. Victor's eyes flicked to it, then to Alex, a flicker of something, regret, calculation, crossing his face. The boy met his gaze unflinching, the matching ink a badge of truths Victor couldn't erase. Victor halted, the circle tightening as his men hesitated, the SUV's engines still humming like impatient beasts. "Father, huh?" he sneered, but the edge had dulled, uncertainty creeping in. Ethan stepped forward, the tablet now in hand, screen illuminating his scarred jaw. "It's done. Elena's trail ends with justice, not your games. Walk, Victor, before the oath we swore turns on you." The words landed like a gauntlet, the iron vow's emblem glinting on vests around them, a reminder of promises unbroken. Victor's jaw worked, shadows playing across his features, the mill's silhouette framing him like a fallen king. For a heartbeat, the world held its breath, the wind sighing through the silos, a distant thunder rumbling like judgment. Victor backed a step, signaling his men with a curt nod. "This ain't over, brother. Blood ties don't fix everything." They retreated to the vehicles, doors thudding shut, taillights fading into the twilight like retreating specters. Dust settled, the crew exhaling as one, engines firing up in a chorus of relief. But Ethan knew the serpent's coil wasn't loose yet. The DNA had changed the game, binding Alex to him irrevocably. But Victor's web lingered, threads of corruption pulling at the edges of their redemption. As they mounted up, Alex's small hand in Ethan's, the first drops of rain pattered on the gravel, washing the mill's grime into rivulets. The road called again, toward answers on Eleanor, alive, hidden, or lost to the shadows. Loyalty had held the line tonight, but the true ride, forged in honor's fire, stretched into the storm-swept night. If this chapter stirred something in you, the raw pull of promises kept and betrayals faced, hit that like button below. Your support fuels these tales of quiet courage rolling across the miles. Rain lashed the convoy like a vengeful spirit as they tore away from the old mill, the downpour turning the road into a slick black mirror that reflected the flashing taillights ahead. Ethan's Harley cut through the storm. Alex huddled against his back, the boy's face buried in the damp leather to shield from the stinging drops. Water streamed from Ethan's beard, mixing with the salt of unspoken fears, the engine's roar a defiant bellow against the thunder that cracked overhead like breaking oaths. The iron vow followed in tight formation, headlights piercing the veil of grey, their tires hissing over puddles that splashed up like accusations from the past. Sarah's van brought up the rear, its wipers slashing rhythmically, the DNA report now a digital ghost in her pocket, proof of blood that bound them tighter than any chain. The city lights blurred into streaks as they pushed toward the outskirts, seeking shelter in a roadside motel that squatted off the highway like a weary traveler. Neon flickered through the rain. Vacancy in sputtering red, promising respite, but delivering only the musty chill of threadbare rooms. Ethan killed the engine first, the sudden silence amplifying the storm's fury against the tin roof. He lifted Alex down, the boy's sneakers squelching on the gravel, his small frame shivering not just from cold. Inside, Ethan murmured, draping an arm around him, guiding him past the crew who dismounted with grunts and shakes of wet vests. Lucas Grant clapped a hand on Ethan's shoulder, water dripping from his beard like tears. We held the line. Now what? Victor's got reach, won't slink off quiet. Inside the motel's lobby, the air hung thick with the scent of stale coffee and mildew, a fluorescent buzz overhead casting harsh shadows on faded wallpaper. The clerk, a gaunt man with eyes like chipped flint, handed over keys without questions. Bikers like these were common ghosts on rainy nights. Sarah claimed a corner table in the adjoining diner, spreading out maps and her tablet under the dim glow of a hanging lamp. The crew filtered in, steam rising from their clothes as they shrugged off jackets, forming a circle of scarred hands nursing mugs of bitter brew. Ethan settled Alex on a stool, wrapping him in a spare blanket that smelled faintly of motor oil, the boy's eyes heavy but watchful, tracing the serpent tattoo now visible on Ethan's forearm. "Results confirm it," Sarah said, sliding the tablet across the scarred formica. The screen displayed charts of genetic spirals, irrefutable lines linking father to son, a revelation that hit Ethan like a gut punch, stirring a warmth he'd thought long frozen. Alex was his, born of that desperate promise in the war's dust, Elena's gift carried through years of hiding, but the joy twisted with dread. Victor's words echoed. Debts, evidence, a trail of shadows Elena had fled. "She must have gone underground after the extraction," Ethan pieced together, his voice rough as gravel under tires. "Victor covered it up, got her here, then turned on her when she wouldn't play his game. Those files, probably dirt on their ops, stuff that could bury the ledger." Murmurs rippled through the group, faces hardening like cooling metal. One rider, a wiry veteran named Jonathan Reyes, leaned in, his fingers drumming the table. "My cousin worked the res clinics, heard whispers of a woman matching Elena, showed up at a free med camp last month, asking about safe houses. No name, just that mark." He tapped his own arm, revealing a faded version of the serpent, inked in a different life, but bound by the same creed. The crew nodded. The iron vow wasn't just bikes and roads, it was a web of quiet alliances, favors traded like lifelines in the dark. Sarah's eyes lit with purpose. "Then we follow it. Camps 2 hours north past the river bend. But Victor's men could be circling. We ride smart, not hard." Alex stirred, his voice cutting through the low hum like a clear note in fog. "Mum said if the bad men came, we go to the river, where the water washes clean." Ethan's heart clenched, the boy's words a bridge to Elena's spirit, her lessons etched deeper than ink. He ruffled Alex's damp hair, the gesture simple yet laden, a father's touch rediscovered. "Then that's our heading, kid. Promises lead to water." The crew rose as one, the storm outside easing to a steady patter, as if the heavens approved. They fueled up under the motel's awning, rain dripping from eaves like reluctant goodbyes, engines coughing to life in the wet night. But as they rolled out, the convoy snaking onto the highway, a pair of headlights lingered in the rear view, unmarked, persistent, slicing through the downpour like pursuing eyes. Ethan signaled Sarah over the comms, her voice tense. "Tail. Ledger scouts, probably. Lose 'em at the bridge." The road twisted toward the river, flanked by dense pines that loomed like silent guardians, their branches clawing at the sky. Thunder rumbled distant now, the air fresh with ozone and pine sap, a sensory shift from the city's rot to nature's raw judgment. Alex's arms tightened around Ethan's waist, the boy's trust a steady flame against the chill. The bridge arched ahead, a steel span over churning waters swollen by the storm, its railings slick and gleaming. Ethan gunned the throttle, the Harley surging, the crew accelerating in unison, a thunderous wave cresting the rise. The tail gained, closing the gap with aggressive revs, but Lucas swung wide, his bike blocking the lane in a calculated feint, forcing the pursuers to break in a spray of water. Sarah's van swerved sharply, cutting them off at the midpoint, her horn blaring a warning. The unmarked car fishtailed, slamming into the guardrail with a metallic screech that echoed over the river's roar, lights spinning before winking out. No chase followed, the shadows had blinked first. Beyond the bridge, the med camp emerged from the tree line, a cluster of tents and trailers huddled under floodlights, the river's murmur a soothing counterpoint to the night's tensions. Smoke curled from a central fire pit, where volunteers stirred pots of stew, the scent of herbs and warmth drifting on the breeze. A nurse met them at the gate, her face lighting with recognition at Sarah's scrubs. "Klein, been a while, looking for someone?" Sarah nodded, briefing her in hushed tones, while Ethan kept Alex close, scanning the faces around the fire. Tired eyes, bandaged limbs, stories of survival etched in every line. Word spread quickly. An older woman approached, her braids streaked with silver, eyes sharp as Elena's in memory. "Saw a lady here, about 2 months back, wouldn't give a name. But that tattoo, serpent on her shoulder, said she was running from debts that weren't hers. Left a message. Tell the rider with the vow, the water's clean now. Follow the bend to the cabin." Ethan's pulse quickened, the words a lifeline tossed across the abyss. The cabin, a hidden spot from old maps, a safe haven Elena must have known. The crew absorbed it, loyalty forging their path anew. As the fire crackled, casting flickering shadows that danced like uncoiling serpents, Ethan knelt by Alex, the river's song washing over them. "We're close, kid. Your mom's promise. It held." But in the quiet, doubt lingered. Victor's retreat felt too easy. The ledger's grasp, a noose tightening unseen. The DNA had changed everything, birthing a family from ashes. But redemption demanded one more ride into the bends where truths hid, and justice flowed like untamed waters. The night deepened, the convoy resting under the stars' watchful gaze, engines silent but hearts revving toward dawn's unforgiving light. The river's bend curved like a serpent's tail through the dense pines, its waters murmuring secrets under the moon's pale gaze. As the Iron Vow convoy pressed on into the pre-dawn hush, Ethan's Harley led the way, the engine's low growl a steady pulse against the night's chill. Alex's small form nestled secure behind him, his breaths even now in the rhythm of trust earned. Rain-slicked leaves glistened on overhanging branches, dripping cool beads onto the riders below, the air thick with the earthy scent of wet soil and wild mint that clung to the riverbanks. Behind them, the medcamp's lights faded like dying embers, the old woman's message echoing in Ethan's mind. The cabin, hidden where the water washed clean. It was a beacon from Elena, a thread of hope woven from the same vow that now bound father and son. Sarah's van hummed alongside, her headlights cutting swaths through the fog that rose like ghosts from the river. The DNA report tucked safely in her glove compartment, a talisman of truths unearthed. The crew rode tight, 24 shadows in formation, their leathers creaking softly with each twist of the throttle, faces set in quiet vigilance. Lucas Grant flanked Ethan's left, his massive bike a bulwark against the encroaching woods, while Jonathan Reyes scouted ahead on a lighter scout model, his eyes sharp for any flicker of ambush. Victor's retreat at the mill had brought time, but not peace. The ledger's tendrils reached far, corruption festering in places light rarely touched. Ethan felt the weight of it all. The boy's life in his hands, Elena's ghost pulling him forward, the serpent's ink burning like a fresh brand on his skin. The path narrowed to a rutted trail, gravel giving way to mud that sucked at tires, forcing the convoy to single file. Alex stirred, his voice a whisper against the wind. "She took me here once before. Everything. Said the cabin was our safe place, where promises hide from the storm." Ethan's grip steadied on the handlebars, the words stirring a flood of fragments, Elena's hand in his, under starlit skies, her laugh cutting through the war's din, the needle's prick sealing their bond. He'd searched after discharge, letters bouncing back unanswered, official channels stonewalling with classified stamps. Victor's betrayal explained the silence. A brother turned gatekeeper, hoarding secrets for profit. Now, with Alex's blood confirming the impossible, redemption wasn't just a ride, it was a reckoning, demanding he reclaim what war and lies had stolen. They crested a low rise, the cabin emerging from the tree line like a forgotten sentinel. A weathered structure of logs and tin roof, nestled where the river forked, its windows dark, but for a faint glow from within, like a heartbeat in the gloom. Smoke trailed lazily from a stone chimney, the scent of burning pine carrying on the breeze, mingling with the river's clean mineral tang. Ethan signaled a halt, engines whispering to silence as the crew dismounted, boots sinking into the soft earth. He lifted Alex down, the boy's eyes wide, scanning the porch where a single lantern swayed gently. "Mom," Alex called softly, stepping forward, but Ethan held him back with a gentle hand, the crew fanning out to cover approaches, shadows melting into the woods, watchful and wordless. Sarah approached the door first, her knock echoing hollowly, the wood groaning under her touch. Footsteps shuffled inside, and the door creaked open to reveal a figure shrouded in a shawl. Elena, thinner than memory. Her dark hair streaked with fatigue, but those storm-grey eyes unmistakable, alive with a mix of fear and fierce recognition. She gasped at the sight of Alex, dropping to her knees to pull him into an embrace, the boy's sobs muffled against her shoulder. "My brave one," she whispered, her voice raw as riverstone, hands trembling as they traced his tattoo. Ethan stood frozen, the sight hitting like a thunderclap, the woman he'd mourned, the promise incarnate, standing in the flesh after years of ghosts. "Ethan," she said, rising slowly, her gaze locking on his, the serpent peeking from her collar like a shared secret resurfacing. The crew held their perimeter, giving space but ready, Lucas's silhouette a reassuring bulk by the trees. Inside, the cabin's warmth enveloped them. A single room with a crackling fire, shelves lined with jars of herbs and faded maps, the air rich with chamomile and wood smoke. Elena brewed tea from a battered kettle, her movements deliberate, as if piecing together shattered time. "After the extraction, Victor promised safety," she began, voice steadying over steaming mugs. "Got me stateside, but then the demands started. Files I'd hidden, proof of their wartime scams, smuggling routes they ran under our noses. I ran with Alex, left breadcrumbs in the ink, hoping you'd find us." Ethan's knuckles whitened around the mug, the heat seeping into scars that ached with old burns. "He called me at the mill, wanted the boy as leverage." Elena nodded, her face hardening. "The ledger's his empire now, vets like us twisted into enforcers. But the DNA, it changes the board, proves our tie, makes Alex untouchable on record." Sarah, seated nearby, pulled out the tablet, the glowing data, a shield of science against shadows. Alex curled against his mother, the family circle closing, but Ethan's mind raced. Victor's "this ain't over" a venomous echo. The cabin felt like a fragile haven, the river's rush outside a reminder that waters could turn turbulent. As dawn's first light filtered through the grimy windows, painting the walls in soft gold, the crew gathered around the table, maps unrolled like veins of the land. Jonathan traced a route back to the city, where Elena's files could be leveraged, anonymous drops to honest feds, crumbling the ledger from within. "We ride together," Lucas rumbled, his loyalty a forge for their resolve. But a distant engine growl shattered the peace, headlights probing the trail like searching fingers. Victor's men circling back, the storm not washed clean but stirred anew. Ethan stood, clasping Elena's hand, the touch electric with renewed vow. "We face it as family." Alex met his eyes. The boy's nod, a spark of inherited fire. The crew mounted up outside, engines igniting in defiance, the river bending away as they prepared to ride out. Not fleeing, but charging toward the heart of betrayal. The DNA had bridged the past, but justice demanded one final coil of the serpent, where honor would clash with corruption in a dawn-lit blaze of redemption. Dust and mist rose in their wake, the cabin shrinking behind. A promise kept pulling them into the fray. The dawn broke fierce over the river's bend, sunlight fracturing through the mist like shards of shattered glass, illuminating the convoy as it surged from the cabin's shadow. Ethan's Harley thundered at the lead, Eleanor riding pillion behind him now, her arms locked around his waist with a grip born of survival's fire. Alex secured in Sarah's van with the crew's watchful eyes. The engine's vibration coursed through them, a mechanical vow syncing with the pulse of their renewed bond, the air sharp with pine resin and the river's lingering freshness. Tires bit into the muddy trail, kicking up sprays of earth that clung to leathers like badges of the chase. Behind, the iron vow stretched in unbreakable line. 24 riders, engines growling in unison, their silhouettes cutting against the rising light like warriors from a half-remembered legend. The pursuing headlights from the night before had multiplied. 3 black SUVs, now barreling down the parallel highway, weaving aggressively through sparse traffic. Their forms hulking predators in the growing glare. Victor's voice crackled over a stolen radio frequency Sarah had jammed earlier, but now it pierced clear. "You think blood changes the game, Harlow? The ledger owns debts deeper than rivers." Ethan's jaw set, the wind whipping his beard as he glanced back, catching Elena's nod, fierce, unyielding, her storm-grey eyes mirroring the resolve in Alex's from the van's window. The DNA report, printed and sealed in a waterproof pouch on his handlebars, was their ace, irrefutable proof of paternity, tying Alex to a legacy Victor couldn't touch without unraveling his web. But proof alone wouldn't end this. Honor demanded a stand, where promises faced the corruption head-on. The trail spilled onto a wider county road, flanked by open fields where wild grasses bowed under the breeze, carrying the faint, sweet scent of blooming sage. Ethan signaled a sharp turn toward an abandoned quarry ahead, a vast pit of layered rock faces, scarred by old machinery, its depths echoing like a natural amphitheater. The crew followed without hesitation, Lucas Grant's bike rumbling beside him, Jonathan Reyes peeling off to flank the rear. Dust clouds billowed as they descended the gravel ramp into the quarry's bowl, engines echoing off the sheer walls in a cacophony that drowned the SUV's approach. Sarah's van skidded to a halt at the center, doors slamming as she pulled Alex out, the boy clutching a small pack Elena had given him. Inside, the hidden files, digitized and backed up, ready to expose the ledger's war-born sins. The SUVs crested the rim, halting in a semicircle that blocked the exit, doors flying open to disgorge Victor and a dozen men, their dark jackets heavy with concealed menace. Faces twisted in the harsh morning light. Victor strode forward, boots crunching on loose stone, his scarred brow furrowed under the sun's assault. "End of the road, brother!" he called, voice booming off the rocks, a pistol glinting in his hand, not drawn, but a threat coiled like the serpent they once shared. His men spread out, forming a ragged line, eyes darting to the bikes circling protectively around the van. The air thickened with tension, the quarry's dust swirling in eddies. Carrying the metallic tang of exposed earth and the faint ozone of impending storm. Ethan dismounted slowly, Elena at his side, her hand finding his in a silent pact. The crew fanned out behind them, a wall of leather and chrome, hands visible but ready. Loyalty their true weapon, not lead. "It's over, Victor," Ethan said, his gravelly tone steady as quarry stone, pulling the DNA printout from his vest. He held it aloft, the paper fluttering slightly in the wind, charts stark against the white. "Alex is mine. Elena's alive, and those files. They're going public. Your ops, Your betrayals, smuggling vets' supplies for profit, shaking down the ones we swore to protect. The oath we took in '95, you broke it for shadows. Victor's eyes narrowed, flicking to the document. Then to Alex, peeking from behind Sarah's legs, the boy's tattoo, a small echo of the truth. Elena's voice cut through, clear and unbreaking. You got us out, Victor, but then you chained us to your ledger. I hid the evidence to protect our son, to wait for Ethan, like the mark promised. She rolled up her sleeve, the serpent gleaming in the light. Scales etched with the same dates as Ethan's. Victor's face cracked, a flicker of the old squadmate surfacing, the man who'd shared foxholes and fire before greed hollowed him out. His men shifted uneasily, whispers rippling. Not all were blind to the rot. One stepped back, hand dropping from his sidearm, the weight of moral fracture spreading like cracks in the quarry floor. The standoff stretched, the sun climbing higher, baking the stone until heat waves danced, blurring lines between ally and foe. Lucas growled low. Walk away, Kane. Family rides free. Victor's grip tightened on his weapon, but his eyes, haunted now, betrayed the coil unwinding. A radio buzzed in his pocket, urgent voices spilling out, alerts of federal teams mobilizing. Tipped by anonymous drops from the med camp, the file's shadows already leaking into light. The ledger's empire trembled, threads snapping under the truth's weight. Victor lowered the pistol, holstering it with a defeated slump. You win this round, Harlow, but debts echo. He signaled retreat, his men piling back into the SUVs, engines roaring to life as they climbed the rim and vanished into the haze, dust settling like a final sigh. The quarry fell silent, save for the distant river's murmur filtering through the trees, a cleansing flow after the storm. Ethan pulled Elena and Alex into an embrace, the family's circle complete, the serpent's promise fulfilled in flesh and forgiveness. The crew whooped softly, clapping shoulders, their chosen bonds forged stronger in the fire. Sarah pocketed the tablet, her smile a quiet victory. Justice washed clean, she said, echoing Alex's earlier words. As they mounted up, the convoy ascending into the sunlight, Ethan glanced back at the pit, a grave for old betrayals, birthing a new road ahead. Elena's hand rested on his shoulder, Alex waving from the van, the horizon open and endless. They rode toward the city, files delivered to waiting allies, honest badges who'd trade corruption for redemption. Victor's fall came swift, the ledger crumbling under exposures that spared the innocent, honoring the vows of those who'd served true. Ethan, Elena, and Alex settled into a quiet life off the grid, the iron vow their extended kin, visits marked by rumbling engines and stories shared under starlit skies. The tattoo, once a ghost, became a living emblem, promises that survived the miles, loyalty's quiet roar against cynicism's wind. In the end, redemption wasn't a destination, but the ride itself. Family chosen, honor unbroken, justice flowing like the river that had guided them home. Thank you for riding along on this journey of promises kept and roads reclaimed. If tales of quiet courage and unbreakable bonds touch your heart, please subscribe for more stories that echo across the miles. We'd love to have you in our crew.